first and foremost, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending. I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the session, it's our first lunchtime session, so we're going to see how it goes today. We normally do early evenings, but we're going to trial it over the next few months and see kind of where people are most comfortable. I think everyone's schedule is mental during the day, and then kind of at the end of the day, everyone's ready to kind of finish up and do home stuff. So we'll play it by ear. Bit of housekeeping before we start. The talk is recorded, so if you'd like to stay off camera, that's absolutely fine. We'll be sharing the link afterwards for everyone to watch it and share amongst the community as well. And then we've also got time for Q&A at the end of the session. So normally we'll kind of leave it to the speakers to cover their content, and then we've got time at the end. Feel free to raise your hand virtually and shout out a question. Or you can type into the chat if you feel more comfortable, and we can go through that. But we've got time at the end for that, so just bear with us. And then moving on to today, so focusing on women in tech today, specifically around career pathways and progression. I guess it's got a women in tech banner against it because of our speakers, and we thought that might be quite an interesting insight to see from all angles at grassroots how to get into technology. And then also understand a bit more around how people have developed that and hurdles and positives and negatives, that kind of stuff wrapped into one. But really, it's applicable to to a career in tech generally. I guess today we're just fortunate enough to have the insight from our three guest speakers. So I'll do a quick intro and then I'll hand over. But thank you very much, Fran, for attending. Junior software engineer currently. I believe finish your coding bootcamp in March, and then 6 months into your first proper job, as it were, in technology. Lina joins us, successful career at ThoughtWorks. I know where you spent the first kind of chunk of your career from graduate through to experienced engineer, and now tech lead at MachineMax, which I know on a trajectory to kind of get to CTO at some point in the near future. And welcome Oana as well, head of professional services background. Welcome Oana, head of professional services at JetStack. Slightly different background, less kind of hands-on background, but obviously spent a good chunk of time at Rackspace, and now currently working for JetStack, who, those of you who don't know, that have recently been heavily invested into by a US company, Benify, and now rapidly expanding their UK operation, and Oana is spearheading their client services team. So hopefully some good insight from all kinds of levels. I'll hand over to you, Fran, shortly, and then as I said, we can cover Q&A after the talks. Over to you.
Cool. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Fran. I work at MTVH, which is one of the housing associations in the country. And as Jack said, I've been there for about 6 months now, and recently kind of completed my career change from fundraising into this exciting new career. So my last fundraising job, I started in the January before the pandemic, and when the pandemic hit, the organization were about to do a huge performance, and then that just got shut down. So they had to furlough a lot of staff, and I was one of the only people not furloughed. So and the climate of fundraising was really difficult. There was a lot of fighting for the resources. Lots of the money was going on essential services and things like that. So it was incredibly stressful. And then in addition to that, I have a daughter who's nursery, who was 1 at the time, and her nursery was shut. So trying to balance a full-time job with essentially like half-time childcare was incredibly difficult, and that kind of really gave me a push to think about a career change, which I'd been kind of thinking about for a while. So I started off by doing a webinar to kind of focus my thinking, and did the classic, write a list of things that I like and dislike, what do I want out of work, and things like that. So some things that came up with was enjoyment of the work. I like fundraising because you can make a difference to real world problems. Salary and career progression were things that I was thinking about, and also my temperament. I think I'm a little bit more introverted, so maybe the fundraising wasn't entirely suited. And I also spoke to some people that I knew from other jobs. Dougie, who's on the call, really said, it'll be a great career. I think you'll be really good at it, and really gave me a push to go into it. And alongside that, I'd started doing some free Code Academy courses, just to try it out and see how I felt. And because I really enjoyed it, I eventually signed up to the Luagon bootcamp. So left my performing arts job in September and started the bootcamp in October. And it was about 10 weeks of really intensive work, covering Ruby, Ruby on Rails, JavaScript, and HTML and CSS and things like that as well. And I finished that in December, did a little bit of freelance, and then really focused on job hunting. And that's where all these kind of thoughts about what I wanted out of work came to the fore, where I really applied it broadly, but when I got interviews, I was really kind of looking for somewhere that was flexible, that understood that I had those kind of childcare commitments. If my daughter was home from nursery, sometimes you have to go and pick her up, and because she's got a rash or something. So I really need somebody that would understand that and be flexible about that. And I wanted to know that because I'd just done this bootcamp, I didn't do a computer science degree. I wanted somewhere where I could take the time to learn and embed myself in this new world for me. So I was kind of asking questions around those things. And I actually did turn down a job because I felt like it wasn't right for me for some of those reasons. Like it didn't seem very flexible and things like that. So I had 2 ongoing interview processes that I was really liking, and MTVH just happened to be the first. But I'm really happy that they offered me the job, and some of that groundwork really has worked for me. The childcare situation is great, the flexibility, and when I started, they gave me somebody to Dora, who's also on the call, I think. Yeah. And she kind of really showed me the ropes and helped me get going with this like new world and this huge code base that I wasn't really used to at all. And then as I moved forward, Niall was my colleague Niall is mentoring me now, and that's been really good just to learn from someone who's really experienced, and is able to explain things to me again, and help me work through some of those problems. So that kind of progression side, also the kind of learning development, has really borne out of those kind of interview questions that I had in the beginning. And yeah, and I think some of the challenges are obviously it's a completely new world for me, and it's like my kind of second career. So kind of being a beginner again and like learning again is a little bit of a challenge, but has been really exciting and interesting. And yeah, I'm happy with what I'm doing now, and with one eye on the future, I think I'd like to do a bit more networking now that we're coming out of the pandemic, and just keep on learning those fundamentals. I'm doing a course with MTVH at the moment on some of the kind of object-oriented programming things, and just really embedding my knowledge and learning, I think, is a key for the next year or so for me. And yeah, and the Luagon slogan, I think, is change your life, learn to code. And I really feel like I have kind of done that. I'm really happy with the career change. I think it's been such a good move for me, and it fits with me a lot more. So I'm really happy, and I would encourage people to go for it.
Thanks, Fran. That's awesome. Very inspirational. I didn't realize that the strap line, to be fair, it's pretty cool when you can actually then say, like, it's quite rare, I think, that companies can actually stand by that kind of mission statement. So yeah, it must be super humbling to then actually be able to deliver that kind of change for people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Lina, over to you.
Cool. We did test this, so hopefully I can share my screen. Can you see it?
Yeah, we're in.
Cool. So yeah, I'm Lina. I'm a lead engineer at MachineMax. And yeah, this is my story so far. I started out at ThoughtWorks. I started out uni. I went to Queen Mary University of London, where I studied electronic engineering and computing. And as I was going into this course, a lot of people like to remind me that it was going to be mainly guys. But for me, it didn't really make a difference because I grew up with a brother who was only 1 year younger. So for me, it's like, well, we played football together, we played PlayStation, we did all that. We also played with Barbies. So it didn't really make a difference as long as we were having fun. It didn't really affect me that it was a majority guys or not. And again, this was like rather kind of edged into my brain when the majority of the lecturers were guys, and the projects were all, because of the course was majority male, that means the group projects were majority male. But again, it didn't make a difference to me because either way they wanted to work with me. So it's more about what I could do and what I can prove and how well I'm doing. That's got them, wanting to work with me, rather than the fact that I'm female making them not want to. Because that's the kind of stuff you hear at uni, and people and all the talks around it and stuff like that, is that, oh, you're doing engineering, you shouldn't do that, go do something else. And of course, robots. So if you're familiar with me or my work, you know that I've done a lot of stuff with robotics. And actually, there were 2 robots at the uni that I was working with, and both of them were actually female. So this is Sparky, and you would think that he was a he, but it's actually a she. And Crystal, and they were both actually named because my supervisor had 2 daughters, and he would take them home and they would play with them, and they decided they were girls. But as you can see, there is obviously not a clear gender when it comes to robots. And then I started my actual career at ThoughtWorks, where I started as a graduate engineer. And being a graduate, it's very overwhelming. I had never worked a day in my life before, not even summer jobs or anything like that. So for me, it was a bit frightening. What do I do? How do I go about this? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I not mess up, basically? And I realized that the only way to do that is that I had exceptional team support. So ThoughtWorks is a software consultancy, and they tend to work with customers or clients where they deliver actual deliverables like websites and applications, or they go in and they try to improve their ways of working, make them agile, get rid of the waterfall lifecycle. And I was fortunate that the team that I was in kind of did it all. We went in to do proof of concept, we did delivery, we did improving their parts of production. So I kind of got to work with a lot of stuff, and everyone there was super supportive. The team was majority seniors, and I'll get back to this point later on, because when you're a senior, they have the understanding, and so they can support you when you need it. Mentorship. So ThoughtWorks supported a lot by having an onboarding body, which again, for someone starting out completely new, was perfect. You can ask them all the silly questions that you'd be afraid to ask anyone else, because they've probably gone through the same thing. ThoughtWorks really had this thing where they align your same paths. So you came from uni, they would assign you someone who also came from uni. It's your first job, they probably assign you someone who is in the similar boat. And so for me, it was great, especially that they send you on a 6 weeks training program in India. And again, for me, this was the first official trip away from home, out of the UK on my own without family. So it was super, super scary. And as a graduate, you kind of want responsibility. No one wants to give you it because you're still new, but for me personally, I wanted it. I wanted to learn. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to take on stuff. And so that was, as a graduate, was one of the struggles that I came across. How do I prove that I can do this when I don't have a track record? And then I got promoted to consultant, and ThoughtWorks, that's the automatic promotion. Once you do a year there, you become a consultant. And what I found being a consultant is that it's really the time to figure out what you like, what you don't like, which tech stack you want to focus on, which agile methodology do you want to follow, Kanban, Scrum, what exactly works for you. And for me, I was lucky enough that I was at the perfect client where I figured out which tech stack I wanted to learn. And then I got promoted to senior. And primarily this is because, again, when you become a senior, it's now the other end of this cycle. You are now the team support. You're helping out people in your team, people that rely on you. You're mentoring. So I became an onboarding buddy and a sponsor for a lot of people that were younger than me, or not even younger than me, just graduates and not senior, basically. And responsibility now isn't something that you want. It's something that you're given. You're automatically responsible for stuff, and you have no choice about it. So it's just funny how it goes from wanting all of these things and having them to becoming that, or being given that. And of course, for me, the one thing that always stuck with me was my passion. Regardless of the role, regardless of where I was, I loved what I was doing. I would go to the office at 7:30 and leave at 10:30. And in no way did ThoughtWorks encourage this. In fact, I was told not to do this, but I loved what I was doing. And so I wanted to be there. I wanted to do the work. I wanted to spend my time coding and learning new things. Eagerness, like I said, when I was talking about learning, I always would put my hand up and say, no, I want to do this. I want to do backend. I want to do front end. I want to do DevOps. I want to do testing. I want to do it all. And that's the best way for me to learn, is hands-on. I mean, I could go through YouTube tutorials and online stuff, but it's not the same as, you know, actually putting it to use in real world application. Goals. So part of the ThoughtWorks culture was that they had annual reviews where you basically have to sell yourself. And the best way to do this, I found, was to set yourself goals and then see if you've met them. And the thing is, you set your own goals. No one's going to tell you what you should accomplish in X amount of time. You set this for yourself. And it's really a challenge to know, can I do this? You have to be realistic so you don't get disappointed. Failure. God knows I failed. There's so many things that I would go in and I think, I can't do this. There's no way that I can just go back to work the next day and fix what I broke. But you can, again, because of team and support and not having this blame culture, which was really helpful for someone in my case. And then self-reflection. And for me, self-reflection is when you basically put everything that I just spoke about and you think about it for yourself. You say, am I on the right track? Is this what I want? Like, you can see that I got from graduate to senior in about 3 years, just under 3 years, 2 years and a half. And that's because I took the initiative. I decided, I knew what I wanted, and I knew how to get there with the help of my colleagues. And ThoughtWorks was really supportive. You know, they when you say that you want to, you know, do a lot more speaking, you can do that. They will give you opportunities. Like I did XConf when I was only a year into my career. That's crazy. Like I would have never dreamt with that. So it's really important. I was very thankful that I was at ThoughtWorks. I always recommend it to graduates starting out because they have the right programs in place to support you. However, my time did come to an end, and it's partly ThoughtWorks' fault. I was told to join LinkedIn because it was going to be helpful for some workshop that I was doing. And then someone contacted me as I was rolling off a project in a tech stack that I wanted. So I was very comfortable with Go and I wanted to continue doing it. And there was MachineMax who specialize in Go, who do everything Go related. And so I moved on to them. So I became a senior engineer there. And there are a few differences between a senior consultant and a senior engineer, especially that MachineMax is a small startup where they focus on IoT and telematics. When you're working for a smaller startup, then a consultancy, you own everything. You know, it's not just being part of a team, but your team is your company. Everything that you do reflects on the team. So, you know, become customer focused. You have responsibility that you wouldn't normally have. Then I got promoted to lead engineer, and the difference for that was mainly taking the initiative, putting your hand up, saying, I'll do this. Even not putting your hand up, you just have to do it. You just have to say, okay, we need this done. You go and you look into it, you figure out how to do it. What's next? And most importantly, I've kept all of these things that are constant. Always had the passion, always had the eagerness. And when I did the self-reflecting part, I realized that I was stuck. I couldn't find a career progression for me. This was very, I'm a very transparent person. So I spoke to my line manager about this, and there wasn't really much they could do at that time, at the scale they were, the funding they had. So I left in June 2021. I looked elsewhere, and again, constantly self-reflecting, I found that I couldn't find what I actually wanted to do. And then they kind of reached out, and here I am back in MachineMax again as a tech lead. Now, I can't tell you what a tech lead does yet because I'm still figuring it out. Literally started like 1st of October, so a couple of weeks ago. But the key thing for me is that, you know, right now I'm working on hiring, and I'm working on, you know, the next step in my career. And I think it's great because when I do my next, you know, self-reflection, I'm going to realize it's a step in the right direction. And then from there, I can take it and say, okay, well, what's my next goal? What's, you know, how do I get to where I want to be? And, you know, finally, it wouldn't be a talk if I didn't add this. We're hiring. So if there's a role here that you're, you know, not interested in, or if there's something else you're interested in, please reach out. My email address or website at MachineMax.com. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Rocket level progression. And sounds like that's just testament to hard work, graft, and also that self-reflective piece around constantly finding yourself to be the best you can be and push yourself to develop your skills. So thank you very much. Very insightful. Oana, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Let me see. Just kind of making sure I share the right screen.
Yeah, you're in.
Okay, perfect. So I think my slides are going to be similar to Lina's. So I'm kind of focusing on the path I took and the kind of the things that stuck with me. Sorry. So just a bit of introduction. Right now, I am head of services at JetStack. So I know Jack mentioned a bit at the beginning. So we're a Kubernetes focused company. We do both professional services, and we're now developing a product we just launched, which is called JetStack Secure. But I would say in the kind of open source community, we're mostly known for our open source project, which is Cert Manager. And essentially one of the things that we're working on right now is developing the open source project, adding to it, and JetStack Secure is kind of adding enterprise features to that. So at JetStack, very much my world is Kubernetes, cloud native, security focused, and it has been from the beginning. So I joined them in 2018 and I was head of support, and my whole attention was very much in shaping their kind of Kubernetes subscription offering. And when I mean shaping, I mean everything from hiring, picking software, designing policies, like literally starting from scratch. And then as of 2020, I became head of services. So which means I've taken over all of our customer-facing team. So I have the professional services team. I also have service delivery managers, and then I also have customer reliability engineers. So kind of taking hold of two departments at JetStack, which is a really, really interesting challenge for me. So when I got invited and I was thinking about the theme, I realized there are kind of three key stages or moments in my path so far. So my role as a service delivery manager, then kind of my move into tech management, which is very unexpected. And I'll talk a bit about that. And then the role I have right now, so as head of services. So service delivery was very much my introduction to tech. I studied political sciences at university. So I was looking to do an internship at NATO that I didn't get, and I was quite sad. And a friend of a friend of a friend essentially recommended Rackspace in this kind of entry-level service delivery manager role. I had absolutely no clue about anything in the tech world. So it was really good. Like somebody actually sat you down and say, this is an IP address. These are MX records. This is how the world works. So it was really good. And it was a really good introduction to kind of customer service, customer satisfaction. But a year after that, I kept having conversations with my manager about my portfolio. And every time she said portfolio, I was dreading it because I was thinking, oh, goody, this is what it means to work for a corporate company where everybody has like blue sky thinking conversations and they talk to you as if you have portfolios. But what she really meant was how other people saw me in the company, right? And that was one of the first big lessons in my career. So I realized after months of having these conversations that it is important how people see you in the team, how people see you in a company, how you want to be portraying yourself, how you come across, like having enough kind of awareness of how you shape certain messages. And it really kind of made me think about all of the things I was saying in meetings, all of the things I was doing in my kind of service delivery team. So I do the things that are, you know, that have stuck with me are things I'm also kind of encouraging people in today is think about how you come across to other people, think about your image in your organization, how you want to shape that. Obviously, don't go for anything fake. That's not you. So do be transparent and do be yourself, but do check in with people. And the second point, which is learning from others, I guess unlike the other speakers, the whole mentorship thing didn't quite work for me. So what worked for me was kind of learning from different people. So I realized my colleagues or my managers, they were all, each of them was great at something different. And what I wanted was to kind of pick all of these good things from them. So kind of tying in with networking, we had a manager at some point who was incredible at networking. I've never seen anybody like this. I mean, he should have been a politician. He was literally like the mayor. He knew everybody, their kids' names, anniversaries. I don't know, just like absolutely insane. It was incredible to watch him. But what was really good, and the kind of lesson I took, was things would get done because he understood the company and the departments as an organism, and he knew who to talk to for what, and kind of when to press and when to have certain conversations. And that kind of like the importance of staying curious, right? So talking to people, understanding what's happening in other teams, what are their pain points, you know, what are their advantages, what are their priorities, how do we fit in? So he was very influential for me in this kind of networking, staying curious, spending time actually talking to people for real, and the importance of taking a step back and understanding your team, your department, and your company as an organism and how it all kind of functions together. I am really awkward at networking events usually, because it's really horrible when it's like being back at school on the playground and you have to make friends. I'm really good if people approach me, but so I think there are millions of ways of networking, right? It doesn't always have to be at an event. But I guess my advice is do stay curious about people because it's incredibly useful. The unexpected move into tech management, because I started networking with people and talking, I went to a management course. So I got approached by somebody else in the company and said, hey, we have an opening in our Linux team. They're looking for a people manager. I was like, I didn't even know where the Linux team sat in the building. So I was completely oblivious. But they said, you've been to the management course, and we think you have a really good reputation in your department, and you'd be really good to apply. And I swear I only went there to not embarrass myself. And I was thinking, I just want to leave that interview with like a clean conscience that I haven't made a fool of myself, which is where I first had this kind of imposter syndrome. It was so bad that when the future manager came to make me the offer, and he took me to this room, and I was thinking he's going to say no, but he's taking me to one side to be polite. And he said, we would like to make you an offer. And I said, are you sure? And he looked at me, he's like, this is not the reply you should have. I was like, please don't take it away. I'm happy, I'll take it. I just never thought you're gonna pick me. And it was crazy. It was crazy scary as a non-technical person managing a technical team, because you do feel I think it's inevitable to feel like a fraud. You're thinking like, what am I going to tell these people? But it worked out. And one of the strange pieces of advice that I got at that point was fake it till you make it. And at first, when he said that to me, I was thinking he's obviously, it's a bit of a strange message. You don't want to be fake. But what he meant is like, he was kind of giving me permission to be in that state of transition, right? So it was okay. It was a new job. It's a new department where it's a slight shift in your career. It's okay. You are going to face the imposter syndrome. It will go away. It's absolutely fine. Giving and receiving feedback. I can't emphasize how important this is. So if anybody here on the call has the opportunity to go to training, read articles, watch TED Talks, anything, like giving and receiving feedback is really an important kind of skill to work on. And it's incredibly useful. It just makes you a better colleague, a better manager, a better leader, just being able to have those kind of good and difficult conversations. Like 100%. My last slide is with useful links. So I do have links for people. They're like articles that I found really useful. So I'll share that later. And then learning about myself. So again, encouraging people to spend a bit of time to realize, like, what do you like? What are you good at? What's the stuff you don't like, or it doesn't really come natural to you? Because it really helps you pick, like, you make better career decisions, right? So if you know what you like and the kind of environment you want to be in, what your values are, or like the things you want to do, don't want to do without, then you are going to pick a better role for yourself. And the last part, which is the unknown, which is the stage I'm in right now, where I'm kind of doing things I'd never expected, or I'm doing things that are kind of new to the company as well, is here at JetStack. And the first thing I had to get to grips with, and it was a big shift for me, was goal setting. So far in my career, and I think some people can relate to this, my main focus was on fixing problems. Team problems, department problems, project problems, whatever problems. And I didn't realize that actually when you do think of goal setting, when you think of goals for yourself or for the team, it's a mentality shift, right? You're kind of planning for the future. You think about, where do I want to get to? So obviously there's a gap between where you are today and where you want to get to. And you will inevitably solve problem as you're trying to get there. But it's a far more positive mindset, and it also helps with messaging and communication and kind of making sure everybody pulls in the same direction. And that was a big thing for me. It sounds really simple when I say it now, but it was a big mentality shift. Keep learning and experimenting. Like, I have 1,001 meetings per day. Like, you really have to take charge of your diary, and you have to make time for yourself to go to training sessions and conferences and thinking time. Like, it sounds really weird, but you can't do amazing thinking time from one meeting to another. If you have like a 10-minute break, you have to literally book time in your calendar to think about things, to experiment, to plan. And the last point is burnout. It's real. And especially in the time we live now, like with the pandemic and the lockdown, like, please, everybody, be careful with your mental health and your just overall health. I find stress really sneaky, and it kind of sneaks up on you. And sometimes I think I'm absolutely fine. And then all of a sudden you realize that you go on holiday and you fall ill because your body is just kind of relaxing. So there are some amazing talks at recent conferences about mental health in tech. So I do recommend people take a look at that. There's some really good advice and material. And that's it. And this is my slide with useful links. I'm more than happy to share it. They're just things I really enjoyed watching or reading, and I recommend people go through it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Oana. That was great. Super. Well, I think the big thing for us when we do any of these talks is really about takeaways in the audience. And I think from every talk, there's been some stuff there which hopefully everyone that is joined today and people that watch it will then be able to reflect on them and take home and act on. I know Brad, like your talk, like to make a move, like a life-changing decision to give up what you have been doing and give yourself to a forward and commit to something new. It's inspiring at a grassroots level. Lina, self-reflection piece of it is really powerful. Like, continue to challenge, like the fact that you continue to challenge yourself, push yourself into new areas, and look where you've got in such a short period of time. And I can't see that slowing down at all. And Oana, I think certainly that I'll take it to make it thing. Like, it's okay to not be a finished article right now, because everyone's got to learn and give yourself a chance to do that, and probably being more okay with that than you think is super powerful, because then when you get there, then what a satisfying feeling. So super useful from my perspective. Questions, anyone, or comments? Has anyone got anything they'd like to ask? Feel free to raise your hand. Yeah, question for Fran, which has come in. Not sure if can you see the chat, Fran? Or
Yeah, I can. Yeah, it's a French. It originated in France, so it's called Le Wagon. So LE and then space and then wagon.
It'll be. We'll share a link as well afterwards. That's helpful. Yeah. Any other questions at all? Anyone?
From like I guess like a management perspective, I guess when you start taking on like more responsibilities, I suppose Lina and Oana, how have you felt that as you took on more responsibilities, being female in like a male driven environment has an impact on that, or have you found like any differences there, or have you found it to be like beneficial actually in some ways?
Yeah. So I don't notice these things, so that's probably like a terrible answer. But I haven't noticed anything like someone saying, you know, they don't want to listen to me because I'm female, or they don't want to follow my lead. In fact, I've had the opposite support, but I don't think it's because I'm female. I think just because of where I got up to, like my skills, the stuff that I say, people tend to agree with, or if they don't, that's absolutely fine. They say, actually, no, I don't think we should do this, but they would explain why, and we'd have that conversation. So again, probably not a helpful answer, but it's just so far it's been okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think when we obviously speak to a lot of candidates as well, they all mention how if we say that there's a, you know, like a female member in the position of leadership, like that's actually a really positive thing. And I see more and more now that that is actually like quite an advantage for people to want to join that team. So it's nice to hear that you have like a positive experience of it as well, to be fair.
I don't know if you see that. There's a comment as well there from Lana. I guess Lina, probably for you again.
Yes, and no, because like I said, it was very early on my career, so I could kind of afford it. And then in the weekends, that's where I didn't work. So I would purposely leave even though I did go home at 10:30, I would leave my laptop in a locker. I wouldn't take work with me. So, you know, sure, there's not much you could do after 10:30. But you know, in the weekends, I had 48 hours to do whatever I wanted to do. So I think I found the right balance. And for me personally, looking back on it, you'd think I would have regret, because I agree with what Oana was saying about burnout. And I didn't notice it until the end of the year, because for me, I never used to take holiday. So it's always, I had 3 weeks off and one carried over every year, because I just didn't have time. I liked what I was doing. So for me, it was more enjoyment to continue working than, I guess, to take holiday, if that makes sense. So I don't feel like it was crucial to my progression. Because the stuff that I was doing in that spare time was taking my time to learn things. My first client with ThoughtWorks was in C#. I didn't know the language. Coming out of uni, they only teach you Java. So for me, it was like, well, I want to learn this. I want to be able to do this to my best ability, especially that we did a lot of pairing. I want to be able to contribute, not just sit there and have the other person lead everything and I'm just nodding along like I understand, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I guess it might have helped subconsciously, but not directly, not that I can see. But again, yeah, it's more that I had my weekends to do whatever it is that I wanted to do.
Fran, looks like you're up.
Yeah. So I started off by looking at the different boot camps that are out there. There are quite a few. There's like Le Wagon, Makers is another one, and there are a number of others as well. And one of the common things that they all seem to use Ruby as the language. And I think that's because it's quite readable. It's an old language. So there's a lot of documentation and support around it. So I think that was the biggest reason was the bootcamp, but actually, like, I think it is a really good language to start off with, because there is a lot of information and resource out there to learn it, and it is quite readable.
Oana, question for you actually. So from a from a non-technical perspective, so for someone that's not looking to become a software engineer, but wants to get into a career in tech, with your kind of career in mind, like where does someone start as a kind of first role, if you think about your discipline specialty?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's so many different angles, right? So they could be coming from like just like I did, service delivery. They could be coming from like a customer success role, project management, marketing, culture, and talent acquisition. There's so many entry points. I think it very much depends on the kind of problems that person wants to solve, or the kind of things they want to do. So yeah, absolutely. Like there are a variety of ways of getting into tech management. You do develop some technical skills and understanding as you go along. You kind of have to. But it's obviously a lot more about the bigger picture and other aspects of the role. But there is variety, and usually, like now, when I hire people, and we have software developers at work that have finished art degrees and were like came through a very different kind of path. We like that diversity, right? Because when I think of diversity, it's not just gender, but you also have age, nationality, background, experiences, skills, right? So sometimes the more kind of diverse background candidates can be more attractive.
Okay, that's cool. And you were obviously scouted from what you said. You were scouted from within for like a transition into, I guess, a more tech role. Any advice you give anyone who isn't in tech right now but wants to kind of get into that kind of industry, with your kind of like legacy, make it, I guess, kind of thing in mind, like anything they should be aware of or can try and do to make that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, do their research, just like Fran was talking about it, right? So just kind of do your research, realize the kind of angle you want to go for, right? So and then try, like I said, network or find the right, so either go to boot camp or get involved in open source projects or go to certain conferences and see what's happening in that area and kind of how you can get involved and get a bit of like real life kind of experience. And allow yourself time. Yeah, like the imposter syndrome is real, and it's not like, I see it in every single person I've hired in my team. Like their first few months, everybody's a bit like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I look in Slack and all they're talking about is Kubernetes and these things. And it's like, it's okay, you're gonna get there, don't worry about it. So be gentle with yourself, allow yourself time. And if you are a person who kind of needs that spoken permission, then ask for it. Talk to the people around you, to your manager, and say, hey, this would make me really comfortable. Am I thinking on the right lines? And yeah, like be open about it, but learn how to recognize it in yourself, because we tend to be our own worst critics, and you have that kind of horrible voice inside your head that it's like doesn't always do you favors.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, there's a question in the chat with you, and I'll read through, and I was going to ask Lina a similar question actually. Lina, with your experience now and your belt, ThoughtWorks, massive global, highly regarded consultancy, and also now to balance that with startup. As a junior software engineer starting out, how would you reflect on where's best? Is there a better place to start and learn, or what have you kind of experienced in both camps?
Yeah, so I think it depends, to be honest, on who you are, what you like doing. I always recommend to even just friends, and when I speak to people from my universities, ThoughtWorks, because the people there really make the difference. People are there to support you, people are there to give you the time to learn. I'm sure you can find that elsewhere, but again, this is my experience, and I love the support I got from ThoughtWorks. Joining a startup can be risky for juniors, because most, like I said, the difference between senior engineer and consultant is that you are the product. not been able to hire junior at MachineMax yet because we don't have the time to coach them, because we have all these features that we need to get out, all these customer support that we need to get out. So I think if you want to take your time to learn something and be mentored by the right people, joining a bigger company like ThoughtWorks is a good place to start. Like I said, they have all these different programs to help you, like the onboarding buddy, the sponsorship. I think they've renamed it now to Cultivator, but you know, it's the support that I found really useful. When I was in my first project, I had to pick a sponsor, and I didn't actually pick a technical person. I picked a business analyst because I wanted to work on my communication and my confidence. I was terrified, and so I didn't really want to work on the tech. I knew that I could pick that up. That's not a problem. So to answer your question, I would recommend ThoughtWorks as a good place as a graduate to start. They give you that 6 weeks as well to pick up all the nice skills, ways of working. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what they do now because of COVID, but I think they must have similar programs.
Awesome. Thank you. Oana, do you want to tackle that one in the chat?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I guess to enhance your image is kind of finding the right opportunities, right? Sometimes is, Lina mentioned this in her talk, is like taking initiative, right? So if there are any kind of cross-functional projects, if there's any opportunity for you to kind of showcase your work, right? And that could be a team meeting where you talk about, you know, hey, I'm working on this project, this is kind of what's happening. But also think or create a plan for yourself, like what are the things that you're really good at or come quite naturally to you, and are those the things that you want to kind of make sure you showcase, right? And then try and spot these opportunities. Is there kind of any volunteer work? Is there any kind of project that would really kind of, you know, show you in a favorable light? Networking, right? So if there are kind of company events or things like that, and you just starting conversations with people and kind of making friends in different departments, and I'm, you know, being curious about them. But yeah, like imposter syndrome is real. One of the things that has been really useful for JetStack was we do user manuals when somebody joins. And in that user manual, each person talks about how they like to work and the things they really enjoy. And some people, you know, have photos of their family and their pets. But user manual has also been quite a good mechanism to get a glimpse of that person who joins, and being able to kind of distribute it to everybody. And you're already kind of starting to establish a bit of an image.
Perfect. Thank you. Any more for any more? I think we could be all out. So if nothing else, thank you very, very much, Fran, Lina, and Oana. It was great. I want to say best ever, but I always feel bad. But I think it probably was the best one so far. So thank you very much. We'll get the recording edited and we'll send out for a review, and then we'll get that out on LinkedIn so everyone can take a look. But yeah, really good. Thank you, everyone. Round of applause from us.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.